Hi, I'm Josh from We Are Change Victoria, and we were here today to talk to the people from Stopsmartmeters.ca, Stopsmartmetersbc.ca, and citizensforsafetechnology.org. They were delivering some shocking new research that states that the smart meters may not be as safe as our provincial health officer, Dr. Perry Kendall, has been assuming. So hopefully he'll take the information and we'll report back when we get more information.
I'd like to deliver one copy of each of these to Dr. Perry Kendall, the Provincial Health Officer. Yep.
So yeah, these meters, the new smart meters, are not Underwriter Lab certified or CSA certified. Were the old analog meters, were those certified?
As far as I know, they weren't. And because the BC Hydro is a utility, they are governed by a different legislation than the consumers are governed by, and therefore they don't have to have CSA or UL approval for their devices. They simply have to meet a manufacturer's standard, and that is basically a self-regulated industry.
So citizens are not allowed to sell UL or CSA unapproved items. What gives BC Hydro the right to sell these potentially harmful, or not even sell, but foist these unapproved or unsafety certified devices on our private property?
Well, that's a really good question. And if you look at how utility companies act, they seem to think that they're exempt of a lot of different rules and regulations and laws. And the way BC Hydro is acting right now with the smart meter program and with their bullying tactics, they seem to think that they don't have to abide by rules and regulations. Now, when it comes to the meters themselves and for the safety of those meters, that is a topic of debate. Because you have two different things you should be considering. Number one is, does the meter actually work as claimed? Many of these meters don't. They're not accurate. They've had to take out thousands of these meters in other jurisdictions. But number two, it is the issue around the radiation from the meter. And the thing that I've come to learn over the years is we have two different messages that we have to think about. Number one is what the Accenture and BC Hydro's public relations spin doctors tell you and what the meters can do. And then there's the actual capabilities of the technology based upon the specifications of the equipment. If you look at the specifications of this type of equipment, these meters can beam almost continuously if programmed so. There's nothing to restrict BC Hydro's programming of these meters to transmit more often. There's nothing in the regulations to restrict what they do. So what the public should be concerned about is you should look at the maximum capabilities, the maximum exposure possibilities, and assume that that's what you're going to be exposed to, because there are no limitations on hydro as how they use the equipment.
These smart meters, do they contain any sort of technology that could be used as surveillance measures against citizens of British Columbia?
Well, surveillance in the sense that I don't think there's any video cameras on them. But as for actual monitoring behavior, this equipment has the capabilities to monitor usage within the house by the second. So if you think, well, is that a big deal or not? Well, when you go home tonight, walk in your door and see how long before you use some electrical equipment. Your life is documented by the use of your electrical equipment in your house, by the minute. You can monitor what television shows you're using. There's a signature, electronic signature that will happen that can show what channels you're watching, whether you're using the internet or not, what appliances you're using. So there's a lot of consumer information that's very, very, very valuable for some people to have as to when and how equipment is used. Also, that information is stored permanently by a third party that is not under any governmental regulations whatsoever. And that information can be called up 20 years from now, and they could say on the night of January 27th, 2012, you were home, we have the data. So if you think about it, the capabilities of how the technology is used is should be the most troublesome thing. But we have to be very concerned with how this data is used. 1970 Triumph. So anyway, I think that's the most important thing to remember when they're with hydro. They have a massive public relations department. Accenture, the people that took over hydro, and Accenture, by the way, has a checkered past, and they were quite artfully divided from an organization by the name of Arthur Andersen and Associates. And I think you probably remember Arthur Andersen Associates. They were the brains behind the Enron scam. Now, what Accenture's actually really complained that we've mentioned them in the same sentence as Arthur Andersen Associates, because in fact they were legally separated from Arthur Andersen Associates before this scandal happened. However, one could be excused for being confused about what the relationship was, is because Accenture came to British Columbia, took over BC Hydro, and is employing the same bookkeeping methods that they used to take down the Enron Corporation. So the thing is that, and this is well documented by other economists, that the type of bookkeeping they're using is very, very suspect, and it certainly doesn't show how far in the hole BC Hydro actually is right now with all their commitments to contracts and such. So Hydro's in big trouble, and I believe a good part of the reason is because of Accenture.
The companies that are recording the data for these smart meters, are they an American company, and would they be subject to the USA Patriot Act?
Very good point. We really don't know for sure, do we? But by the way, all data that enters the country into the United States is subject to the Patriot Act and the Homeland Security Act. It's all subject for viewing by some type of governmental agency in the United States of America. And when you start thinking about that, how secure is your information now when these guys are looking at it? And by the way, these guys have gotten hacked several times. So that information is not secure. And how do I feel about some pretty right-wing influences in the United States right now having access to this sort of data about my private life? It's really starting to really concern me. It's going outside the country, and there's no security there.
Yeah, regardless of right-wing or left-wing governments, foreign governments accessing data as sensitive as Canadians' electrical usage and the patterns that we generate with that is very alarming. So I'd like to thank you.
Pleasure, my man.
Thanks a lot.
Good work, guys.
Is it only through health concerns that people can refuse smart meters? What about the people that don't have any valid health issues that still would like to refuse the smart meter based on the infringement of their civil liberties, based on the collection of data that these things are assumed to collect, or really just based on our fundamental freedoms that you're supposed to be allowed to say no, and if you can't say no to something, you're not free?
Absolutely. You make a very good point. There are many different reasons that British Columbians do not want one of these smart meters on their home. Today, in particular, we were addressing the health concerns, which definitely is the priority. However, it's not the only concern. People can refuse smart meters for any reason. That is their right to say no to something being placed on their home that they do not want. Of course, there's the concerns on privacy, that these new meters have the capability of recording and transmitting very detailed, granular information of your day-to-day ins and outs of your life. And the fact that it is wireless also poses a security risk. As we know, the biggest governments and institutions, banks, have all been hacked into. No one is safe. So when BC Hydro assures you of complete confidentiality, that's highly, a stretch. Many, I think, would say. Also, there's the risk of fire that hasn't really had a lot of attention here in BC. However, in California, if you look up fires related to smart meters, there are quite a few documented cases where fires have been initiated from the meter itself. So I would really encourage, another important point is for people to understand is that these meters are not UL or CSA certified. So really, safety is highly questionable with these meters, and given the experience had in California, people have a reason to be very concerned. There's also the cost. People in California, where these meters have been placed already, in Ontario, and even in BC, in some places that areas that have them already, are finding that their costs, simply with the change out of the meter, their rates have gone up. That is even before time of use billing has even come into play. And of course, BC Hydro will assure us that time of use billing is not in the cards. However, I really encourage British Columbians to look up the business plan of BC Hydro, and you will see within their own business plan, they spell out the time of use plan for these meters. So, it's been pointed out before, a lot of the information that's being given to the public is highly inaccurate. And because we all have a vested interest in our electricity, BC Hydro is our only provider. It is vital that people do their homework, find out the information for themselves, and they do have the right to say no. They can go to our website, Stopsmartmeters.ca, or citizensforsafetechnology.org, and we have all the printables there for them. All they got to do is take that initiative and put it on their meter and send that letter into BC Hydro.
So with Dr. Perry Kendall been given information clearly outlining the concerns that people have of the electromagnetic radiation or microwave radiation coming from these, do you think that he will take these two new studies as seriously as he has taken the ones in the past?
Well, we all certainly hope so. Dr. Perry Kendall has taken the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm and to continue to ignore scientific evidence from credible sources that continues to pour forth on the dangers of this type of emissions. And we're talking about long-term chronic exposure, to children, to pregnant women, to the elderly, to people with medical, conditions. And so we really do hope that Dr. Kendall takes his position of authority on health matters to the, for British Columbians very seriously, and as these medical professionals abroad, and demand BC Hydro and the BC Liberals put a halt on this program, at least until we can investigate very thoroughly the health concerns, and if it truly is warranted, to start from the beginning and see what other safer, more effective and greener technologies, solutions we can come up with.
So 10 years down the road, we think that maybe we haven't won the smart meter battle, and evidence clearly shows that, this is hypothetical, but in 10 years that these smart meters are causing a rampant increase in chronic diseases, cancers, birth defects. Will Dr. Perry Kendall be held to account, and will he be in derelict of duty as to, when this study, after these 10 years come by and it shows that these are actually damaging technologies, who will be held responsible?
Right. Well, my understanding is that although Dr. Kendall holds this very important position regarding public health, not necessarily would he be held. Unfortunately, the law protects him, and it's very unlikely that he would be held accountable, even with conclusive evidence down the road that this indeed was harming people and causing an influx of cancers and miscarriages and neurological disorders and what have you. The likeliness is that he would be protected, and of course that is not right. That is why we put these professionals in the position that they are, is so that they will protect Canadians. And this should not be used as a scapegoat for him, because he will be held accountable by the citizens of British Columbia, and that is for certain.